Good evening, Mark here from Excel, and this evening I'm going to be tasting two different wines from Stellenbosch in South Africa, from the excellent producer Stark-Conde, whose wines we've taken before, and one of which was a huge smash hit last year. That wine was their Cabernet Sauvignon, but I'm not going to be tasting that here. That's on a separate tasting you can find elsewhere. This is a tasting of their 2019 White Field Blend, which is a fascinating wine. One of the things I love about this job is getting to find and see and try wines I would never otherwise have heard of. And this is definitely one of those off-piste, left-field wines, which is just, quite out there. It's a field blend, and it's got a lot of weird things going on about it. One, it's 4 different grape varieties. It's got Roussanne, Chenin Blanc, Verdelho and Viognier in there, blended in the ratios, roughly speaking, of 40% Chenin Blanc, 30% Roussanne, and about 15% of the other two, the Verdelho and the Viognier. Now, I am naturally a bit sceptical about white blends, and I know that some of the world's great whites, particularly Bordeaux whites, are blends, but I do think that in many cases the whole blending process can be used to cover up a multitude of wine sins, both in the vineyard and in the winemaking. In that, if some element of your wine is not quite right, you haven't got your acidity right, you haven't got your body and your texture right, you haven't got the fruit, the aroma right, well, you can always wallop in another grape to make up the gaps. And I think I've drunk enough Portuguese blends and enough white Côte de Rhône where I think that that's been done, and done quite clumsily, to end up with a wine that's less than the sum of its parts, to think that I'm not naturally drawn in the first instance to white blends. However, this is a bit different. I am drawn to this wine. The reason I'm looking at it is because it is this week's wine of the week from the jancisrobinson.com purple pages, where it's been reviewed very favourably by Tamlin and Curran in some very colourful terms, you'd have to say, and it reads extremely well, so I thought, well, we've got to try this. What more can we say about it as a field blend? Well, those 4 different grape varieties are drawn from no fewer than 11 different soil types across the Jancis Valley of, or Jancis Hoek perhaps, of Stellenbosch, not a region, an area I knew all that much about, but I've got a better grasp of it now. Being a field blend, and I'm not entirely certain, I'm still not sure, what totally defines a field blend, it is largely fermented together. So although the grapes are picked separately and pressed separately, 95% of all this lot was co-fermented together. So a little bit like the co-fermentation that you see in some of the Rhone Valley whites and reds. Something like 90% of it is fermented in old oak, 5% of it in new oak, 5% of it in concrete eggs, and then it is aged separately and then all re-blended at the end. So it's quite a complicated process that goes on to create this wine, and well, the result is pretty stunning actually, and I was a little bit skeptical when I read the description. I thought, well, can it be that good? Well, I think it really is. Now, the flavour profile, as I pick it out, comes from sort of 3 different areas, I suppose. Both on the nose, which is very aromatic, but also on the palate as well. Firstly, on the nose and on the palate, it's really floral. Now, I'm not great with flowers. I'm not a flowers kind of guy, and I don't really know my honeysuckle from my acacia, but it's got a beautiful floral nose to it, and I think those 2 flowers do feature in there. There's a whole load of other stuff that I don't know the names of, but it's just got this wonderful set of very light, very heady aromas to it. Fruit-wise, it's really tropical. You'd have to say that all of those tropical ripe fruits, the guavas, the papayas, the passion fruits, some of those flavours that you get used to from New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, well, they're in here too. But it's got some pretty acid, sharp fruits in there as well to offset that. There's a little bit of grapefruit, there's definitely some kiwi fruit, and there's definitely some lime. Some might say it's key lime because there is this kind of creaminess to it. And that takes across actually to the 3rd area. And I think this is definitely my own flavour note. I've not read this anywhere else, but there's almost a sort of custardy lemon meringue flavour to that, which I think is a combination of the oak melding with those very sharp fruits. It's something that you get with oak Sauvignon Blanc as well. This kind of slightly odd custardy sort of flavour. Anyway, it's those three flavours, really, really interesting. Acidity, pretty crackling actually. I mean, with 40% Chenin Blanc in there, that's where that acidity is coming from. Texture, it's really round, it's really full actually, which I think is coming mainly from the Roussanne, but obviously the Viognier is adding to that as well. The florality of it is coming, I think, from both the Verdelho, but particularly from the Viognier. And then it's got a real full-on fruitiness, which I think is mainly contributed by the Verdelho, but the Chenin as well. I mean, this is a really fascinating wine, and I think sometimes you look at a wine and think, what would that go with food-wise? Is this a poultry wine? Is this a fish wine? What's this best with? Well, actually, it's so good. I think it's absolutely fascinating and really good to drink without anything to eat at all. It's just one of those ones to ruminate on, drink, enjoy, savour. Really good summer wine, actually. Okay, it's not hugely cheap. At $19.95, we're selling this out, which I think is a UK best price. It's still, you know, it's an investment wine. You're buying into it. I think it will drink for 2 or 3 years, but I can't see any reason not to drink it now. Really interesting. One of the best white wines I've drunk for a long time. Yeah, thank you, Team Jancis, for bringing it to our attention.